Hey sisters, little Jade has arrived. This story is truly the most satisfying one I've read recently. The scumbag, evil mother-in-law, and green tea cousin, not one of them got away. All dealt with properly. The key is that the female lead didn't shed a single tear from start to finish, clean and decisive. Textbook level counterattack. I was literally slapping the table while reading. Without further ado, let's get straight to the story 3 months away from the capital. And my fiancé had a little cousin by his side. At the welcome banquet, she showed off wearing my wedding dress. My fiancé feigned helplessness. Miamian is still young, a slap interrupted his words. Kneel down, I smiled. Have I been giving you too much face? 3 months ago, I accompanied the princess to the northern prefecture for disaster relief. On the day I returned to the capital, Pei Yanli prepared a welcome banquet for me. Walking into the Pei residence, I saw a 16 or 17-year-old girl standing in the pavilion. A wedding dress with ornate hairpins and embroidered pheasant patterns, dazzling and eye-catching. Hearing footsteps, she turned around. Cal, she froze for a moment, then looked me over a few times. Then she smiled sweetly. You must be my cousin's bride-to-be. Seeing my gaze fall on her outer robe, her voice was cheerful. Sister-in-law, your wedding dress is truly beautiful. I heard from Aunt that this wedding dress was made by over a dozen embroiderers from the palace, taking more than half a year to complete. Aunt saw that I liked it, so she let me try it on. I didn't expect it to fit so perfectly. A smile so innocent, so oblivious to the ways of the world. I curled my lips slightly, having known each other for years. I understood Pei Yanli. He had always been cautious in his conduct. Everyone in the mansion strictly observed the rules and kept to their proper place. Yet Xu Miamian acted so recklessly without anyone admonishing her naturally. This was inseparable from his indulgence. Reuniting after a brief separation should have been a joyous occasion. Who would have thought what awaited me was such a surprise? Too bad I'm not the female lead in those torture porn stories dreamed up by poor, frustrated scholars. The kind who, even after becoming Empress Dowager with not a single guard by her side, can only wait for the male lead to play savior while being brutally tormented to death. I have plenty of guards around me. How dare you? Chungying kicked Xu Miamian in the back of her knees. Before the county princess, how dare you overstep your place like this? The young girl's knees hit the ground hard. Her smile froze on her face. When she looked behind me, her eyes immediately brimmed with tears. This commoner girl doesn't know the rules and has offended the county princess. I beg the county princess not to take your anger out on cousin and auntie. If you must kill someone, just kill me alone. Woo woo woo. This commoner girl is willing to die as an apology. So Pei Yanli had returned. Seeing me, his cool eyes and brows were tinged with warmth. But the next moment, hearing Xu Miamian's words and seeing the wedding dress she wore, Pei Yanli froze. He strode over and grabbed Xu Miamian, who was about to crash into the pillar. But he turned to me and said, Lingyue Miamian, she is just, kneel down. My tone was calm. Burn this dress along with everything else. Chenggying immediately ordered the female attendants behind her to hold down Xu Miamian and strip off her wedding dress. As a special honor and favor, the emperor and empress granted me permission to wear the flower hairpin and ceremonial robe that only princesses may wear at their weddings. Xu Miamian's unauthorized wearing of a princess's ceremonial wedding dress was an act of overstepping her status. And Pei Yanli could not escape the blame for his failure to supervise properly, but Pei Yanli looked helpless and tried to reach for my hand. Mianian is just young and ignorant. Why must the county princess take it to heart? In the flickering firelight, Xu Mianian hid behind Pei Yanli. Tears in her eyes, it seemed like fear, yet also like provocation. I couldn't help but laugh. Looking at the tearful and aggrieved Xu Miamian, overstepping the imperial household and offending the county princess, you shall be punished with 10 strikes of the rod as a minor warning. Xu Miamian's face instantly turned pale. She looked pleadingly at Pei Yanli. Pei Yanli frowned. Lingyue, a crisp smack, rang out. I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. His voice came to an abrupt halt. This slap. Xiaoyu has been waiting for a whole 3 chapters. Pei Yanli, you listen carefully. Your fiancé's wedding dress was worn by your little cousin, allowed by your mother, witnessed by your own eyes, and the first thing you say when you run out is, Miamian is young. Not I'm sorry. Not I'll go get the dress back, but she is young. Being young means she can wear a wedding dress with princess-level ceremonial standards. Being young means she can be so provocative in front of your fiancé. Pei Yanli, this slap is not unjust at all. This palace suggests another one. I've always thought that Pei Yanli is a smart person, but a smart person shouldn't treat everyone else as fools. I looked at him expressionlessly. Am I giving you too much face? To the point where you've forgotten what hierarchy means. Xu Mianmian widened her eyes in disbelief without giving her a chance to speak. Cheng Ying quickly had the person dragged to the courtyard for punishment. Pei Yanli was struck so hard his head turned to the side. A long moment he lifted his robe and slowly knelt down. His voice tight, suppressing his emotions. Mianmian's mother is my mother's eldest sister. Back then, during the famine, to feed her younger siblings, she sold herself to a local wealthy household without sons as a concubine. After giving birth to Mianmian, she passed away within a few days. Without her birth mother, and being born of a concubine, if my mother hadn't brought her to the capital, she would have almost been sent by that inhuman father of hers to be a concubine to a crippled widower. A girl who is practically an orphan with no father or mother, no one ever taught her proper manners. Today she truly didn't mean to offend the county princess. She doesn't know the rules, but don't you either? I lowered my eyes to look at Pei Yanli. Failing to discipline properly, you're equally guilty of negligence. In recent years, there have always been some arrogant people who think that with my entire Yang family dead in battle, leaving only me, a lone girl, I can't uphold the Yang family name. The emperor and empress raising me at their knees is nothing but a show put on for the world to see. They all think they can easily manipulate me, but they forget I am personally enfoffed by the emperor and empress, the Ning'an County princess, with an actual fief of 100 households. And in our dynasty, even ordinary princesses only get fiefs of 300 households when they marry. I will have someone teach Mining proper manners. Pei Yanli said in a low voice, as for the rats in the storeroom, damaging the wedding dress, I will also plead guilty to His Majesty. The rules will naturally be learned in time. I looked at him, my tone unhurried, but she made a mistake and must be punished, and so must you. 20 lashes, do you object? Pei Yanli stared at me fixedly, as if unable to believe it. After all, before today, he and I could be considered respectful to each other, never having had a harsh word between us. But now, I wasn't joking with him either. He lowered his head. This subject is willing to accept punishment. Over these years in the palace, I've witnessed the loving relationship between the emperor and empress, with the 6 palaces left empty. But the emperor would still occasionally secretly favor palace servants in the harem. The empress did not, as rumored, torment the palace maids who were graced with favor. She only required the palace maids to fulfill their proper duties. She once told me and the princess that if a man has no wandering desires, no matter how much a woman does, it is useless. So even though I saw through Xu Mianmian's little schemes, I was unwilling to be too harsh on her. After all, as long as Pei Yanli upholds his manly virtues. No matter how many ideas others have, it is all useless. But in the end, I still thought too highly of Pei Yanli at the banquet hosted by the princess. I saw Xu Mianmian showing off to a few young ladies the bamboo joint jade pendant she wore. Cousin said, no matter what others say, in his heart, I'm the most innocent silly girl. He hopes I'll be like the bamboo on this jade pendant, forever pure and untainted by worldly corruption. The tender green dress made her look even more lively and charming. Seeing me appear, Xu Mianmian ran up to me. Holding the jade pendant for me to see, sister-in-law, isn't it pretty? Cousin gave it to me. It wasn't any exquisite treasure, but it was exceptionally familiar. This was the token I gave to Pei Yanli when we got engaged, carved by my own hand. I raised my hand to touch the luma blade at my waist. It was what he gave me back then. I once thought he would be the one who understood me. What a pity, those who could attend the princess's residence banquet all had sharp minds. Ambiguous, scrutinizing gazes flowed between Xu Mianmian and me. I laughed and reached out to tear off the jade pendant Xu Mianmian was wearing. I clenched my palm hard, then released it. Only powder remained, scattered by the wind. Bamboo is noble by nature, a favorite of refined scholars. Too bad he doesn't deserve it. I looked at Xu Mianmian with her aggrieved red eyes, completely calm. Go back and tell your cousin, tell Pei Yanli that the token is destroyed, and the engagement between him and me is hereby cancelled. Xu Mianmian eventually ran off crying. The few young ladies she brought with her stood there awkwardly. Their fathers and brothers worked under Peiyanli, so as their children they would naturally fawn over Xumiamian, who came from the Pei family. I wouldn't blame them harshly, but that is all there is to it. Because of Xumiamian's crying, the atmosphere of the banquet was briefly disrupted. For this, I voluntarily took out the Lumo blade that Peiyanli had given me years ago as a prize for the young ladies' competition. The Lumo blade had 3 edges like frost, with a blade body shaped like a sword. It was one of the 4 legendary lost treasure swords. Those who loved martial arts naturally wouldn't want to miss it. In the end, it was Huoxian, the eldest daughter of the cavalry general's family, who won the competition. She looked at the dagger over and over for a long time, then made a few practice moves in the air. The general's wife hurriedly stopped her, fearing she would be punished for breaching etiquette. The princess, however, smiled warmly. I've long heard that Miss Huo is a woman who rivals any man at such a young age. You once fought 7 opponents alone and saved your infant sister from the hands of barbarian spies. This year, both the palace and the princess's residence will be selecting female military officers. I look forward to your performance, Miss Huo. Xian's eyes instantly lit up. The general's wife hurriedly pulled her daughter to bow and express gratitude, her eyes unable to hide her relief and excitement. If one could accomplish something great, who would want to see their child confined to the inner quarters? As for Shu Mianmian, she was hiding alone, squatting at the base of the wall at the end of the corridor, her eyes red-rimmed. 2 girls passing by were startled. After recognizing Shu Mianmian, they glanced at each other and laughed ambiguously a couple of times. Often when others exchange knowing glances and chuckle, it makes one feel even more ashamed than being directly cursed to one's face. Shu Mianmian rushed out of the princess's residence without caring about anything. She didn't even curtsy to bid farewell to the princess. Returning to the Pei family, she haphazardly packed her luggage, crying. She told Peiyanli's mother, who came to see her, that she wanted to go back to her birth father's place. Even if she were sold as a concubine to some 70 or 80-year-old man, she would accept it. Thus, Peiyanli had just gotten off work and returned home, only to see his mother's displeased expression and his little cousin with red, swollen eyes from crying, enduring the mental exhaustion and the pain in his back. He pinched the space between his brows and asked in a slow voice, "What happened?" Chungying had held back when whipping Shu Mianmian, but when whipping him, she didn't show any mercy at all. His injuries hadn't healed yet, but troubles kept coming one after another. Shu Mianmian choked up as she spoke. "Cousin, the county princess, publicly said she wants to break off the engagement with you today." Peiyanli frowned but didn't speak. Reality wasn't like those romance novels that women fantasized about. He and Lingyue had exchanged marriage certificates and wedding documents the engagement was set. It absolutely wasn't something she could easily break off with just a casual remark. Shu Mianmian placed the box on the desk, head lowered, when I was at home. Father favored the younger brothers born to other concubines, and my legitimate mother was very cold to me too. Coming here, I felt the warmth of a family for the first time. I just wanted to fit into this family, not to sabotage the relationship between you and the county princess, cousin. Her usually bright eyes were filled with grievance and forbearance. Cousin, if the county princess blames me, even if she wants me to die right now, I absolutely won't let it ruin your future. Woo woo woo. Mother Pei on the side was both heartbroken and furious. Go tell that woman the Pei family absolutely cannot tolerate such a vicious and jealous shrew. An orphan girl who brings misfortune to her father and mother, who is to say she won't bring misfortune to her husband in the future. Divorce her sooner or later. Peiyanli only kept a cold face. I'll handle this matter. He had always known that women were prone to jealousy and sensitivity, but he never imagined that his fiancé from a military family would also be so narrow-minded and intolerant. He couldn't tell if it was disappointment or an expected sense of melancholy. The next day, I was at a restaurant listening to opera with Cheng Jing. Peiyanli brought Shu Mianmian along and cornered me in a private room. Shu Mianmian, with reddened eyes, followed behind Peiyanli. Today, I just want to clear things up with the county princess. Peiyanli looked into my eyes, his gaze dark and heavy. Previously, I had a maid from mother's side replace the cord on the jade pendant, and Mianmian happened to see it and took a liking to it. So mother decided to give it to Mianmian. Mianmian had no idea it was a token between you and me. These past few days, I've been busy at the Ministry of War with the bandit suppression in the Northwest. and didn't have time to ask mother to retrieve the jade pendant. It wasn't until I returned home yesterday that I learned of this misunderstanding. I gently waved my round fan, Shumimi, and knelt on the ground, putting on a show of apologizing to me. I'm sorry, County Princess. Many noble ladies in the capital looked down on me for my lowly birth, so I wanted to show off the jade pendant to let them know how much cousin and aunt dote on me. I didn't mean to offend the County Princess. Please rest assured, although I'm from a concubine's birth, I would never be a concubine myself. Please don't take your anger out on cousin and aunt because of me. With that, she kowtowed heavily toward the ground. The fan blocked her head from going down. Do you really want to bear all this guilt alone? Shumamian was indeed annoyingly stupid, but her crime didn't warrant death, but that couldn't stop her from being hell-bent on dying. Shumamian cautiously glanced at Pei Yanli. She nodded firmly. The matter of the jade pendant, let it go. I spoke unhurriedly. But first you unauthorized used the wedding dress with princess-level protocols. Yesterday you cried and wailed at the princess's residence banquet, and later you even left the table without permission. Once is okay, twice is okay, but not thrice. Disrespecting the princess, overstepping the royal family according to the law. You'll at least be exiled 3,000 li, never to be pardoned. Yang Lingyue, Pei Yanli wanted to retreat in order to advance. But I hate stupid people who think they're smart. I brought Miamian here to clear up the misunderstanding with you. He lowered his voice. I smiled faintly. Chamberlain Pei, you're not high enough in rank to call me by name. Moreover, you and your little cousin disrupted the princess's banquet yesterday. The princess is the emperor and empress's most beloved only daughter. The only princess since our dynasty's founding who can establish a residence and set up her own household staff, with power no less than the crown prince. If it weren't for the princess not planning to interfere in matters between Pei Yanli and me, she would have ordered punishment for Pei Yanli and his mother yesterday. I saw Pei Yanli's hand slowly clench into a fist. He couldn't afford the price of angering the princess or even the empress. Pei Yanli slowly spoke. I can persuade the other court officials to no longer obstruct the princess from forming the women's army and have the Ministry of War provide the salaries and weapons. Barely acceptable. I put down my round fan. There won't be a next time. Miss Xu, before Xu Miamian left, I still kindly reminded her, you were born in the border city, perhaps influenced by Li Dynasty's culture of scarce land and resources, but you must remember in our dynasty, there has never been a rule that daughters born of concubines can only become concubines themselves. Not to mention anything else, our dynasty's founding emperor's empress, Yuan, was born of a concubine. To be precise, she was the child of an outside mistress, even lower than a concubine's daughter, yet she still became empress. Shumamian glanced at Pei Yanli before nodding. After she left, Pei Yanli hesitated, as if he had something to say, but I no longer wanted to deal with him now. All these years I've watched the emperor and empress work hand in hand toward the same goals. They understand each other's ambitions and appreciate each other's talents. I once thought that Pei Yanli and I also had a chance to reach that point. What a pity Pei Yanli met my gaze. You are the wife I've chosen. This has never changed. I raised my eyebrows slightly and couldn't help but laugh. Being his wife, was that supposed to be some great blessing or something? Pei Yanli, do you know why I chose to be engaged to you in the first place? Pei Yanli furrowed his brow slightly back then. There were rumors both in court and among the people that the crown prince intended to marry me in order to win over the old followers of the Yang family. But in the end, I chose Pei Yanli, who came from a humble background. When you first entered the Hanlin Academy, you discovered that your superior had been plagiarizing his wife's articles all along. You reported him without hesitation and cleared his wife's name. His Majesty praised you for not fearing the powerful, but you spoke bluntly, saying you simply couldn't stand having someone without talent or virtue above you. I used to think you were someone who, while not upright, was at least frank and intelligent. No wonder when I told the Empress my reason for choosing him, she said I was foolish. What is real and what is fake that is the hardest to distinguish? Pei Yanli lowered his eyes after a long while. I understand now. Pei Yanli came from a humble background and had a difficult time in his youth. Therefore, he was someone very good at calculating gains and losses. No matter what others thought of me in their hearts, the emperor and empress never treated me poorly on the surface. The princess was even my close friend who I grew up with. He naturally knew that he couldn't afford to fall out with me at this time, or perhaps he still held on to a glimmer of hope. After all, the emperor and empress had yet to issue an edict canceling the engagement, nor had they shown any intention to reprimand him. He began to distance himself from Xu Mimian. If it weren't for old Madame Pei's fondness for having the whole family dine together, the two people living in the same residence would probably barely see each other at all. At the occasional banquets in the capital, Xu Mimian was always alone, such is the way of the world. Even though everyone knew that Pei Yanli's intentions were far from innocent when he gave his fiancée's token to another woman, but when women were confined to the inner quarters, even the so-called mistress of the household, often mentioned in storybooks, had no power to resist her husband's fickleness, let alone interfere in others' marriage affairs. All the malice would only be endured by Xu Mimian, who was similarly trapped in the inner quarters. In less than half a month, this once lively and spirited young girl gradually became haggard under Pei Yanli's cold neglect and the subtle ostracism from those around her. Finally, while accompanying old Madame Pei for a meal, Xu Mimian swayed as she tried to serve food to the old madam. She fainted. The physician said she was suffering from pent-up emotions. When Pei Yanli returned to the Pei residence, what he saw was old Madame Pei with reddened eyes, and Xu Mimian pale-faced, having just awakened from unconsciousness. Cousin. Xu Mimian truly felt wronged. She didn't understand what she had done wrong. Anyway, she was just a concubine-born daughter, and her father was merely a wealthy villager, since she would have to become someone's concubine either way, rather than being sent by her father to some old man with one foot in the grave. She'd rather stay by her cousin's side. Cousin was talented and handsome, had the crown prince's support, and had a bright future ahead. Her mother-in-law was also her own maternal aunt, who surely wouldn't mistreat her. If she could give birth to a son, she might very well receive an official title in the future. Weren't all the wives and concubines of the current left minister granted the title of Lady of the Commandery? But these petty thoughts she didn't dare speak out loud. Xu Mimian just silently shed tears. Old Lady Pei heavily struck the ground with the cane in her hand. An orphan girl with a cursed fate who brought death to her entire family, and now before even entering the door, she is already stirring up unrest in our Pei family. Pei Yanli, tell that little hussy that if she wants to enter the Pei family's door, she must treat Mimian with the proper respect of an equal wife. Pei Yanli pinched the bridge of his nose. He hadn't expected things would actually come to this point, looking at the man before me with disappointment and disgust intermingling on his face. I let out a sigh. Power and influence blind the eyes. I never thought that someone I once considered clever would turn out to be this kind of person. Pei Yanli looked at me coldly. Yang Lingyue, birds of a feather flock together. You're both orphan girls, so why must you bully a teenage girl like this? Not to mention, I never had any intention of taking concubines before, but even if I did, it is perfectly normal for a man to have 3 or 4 wives. Though you hold the title of county princess, you're not of royal blood. It is only because your entire family died for the country that the court granted you the title of county princess to appease your Yang family's former subordinates. You're a clever person. Do I really need to explain these principles to you? Pei Yanli, shut your mouth. The entire Yang family died fighting on the battlefield. Father was the loyal and martial general. Mother was the first woman in our dynasty to be enfeoffed as a marquise and appointed as a general. The title and honor this family earned with their lives in your mouth becomes just to appease the old troops. Have you forgotten how you climbed your way up? You were that poor scholar from the Hanlin Academy who plagiarized your superior and caught Lingyue's eye. It was only after the engagement, by riding on the Yang family's remaining prestige, that you made it to the position of Vice Minister of War, eating from their bowl while smashing their pot. Pei Yanli, this is as far as your character goes in this lifetime. It turns out he is even worse than I thought. The rumors about the Pei family wanting to take an equal wife spread more and more. Finally, they even reached the ears of the emperor and empress. Our dynasty's laws prohibit taking an equal wife, but if the people don't report it, the officials won't investigate. Among common folk, such things aren't uncommon. It is just that under propriety and law, an equal wife is ultimately still a concubine. But Pei Yanli is different. He is a fourth-rank official of the court, unless the emperor and empress bestow another marriage upon him when he already has a wife. Imperial decree overrides all propriety and law, tacitly allowing him to have 2 wives, otherwise he would be violating the law with his crime aggravated. Pei Yanli knelt at the palace gate entrance to plead guilty. Xu Miamian also knelt in front of my county princess residence. Crying and pleading guilty, she knelt while crying. In just a few words, they painted me as a narrow-minded, jealous woman who would stop at nothing to climb up to the Eastern Palace, even framing her own fiancé. A venomous snake of a woman, but my Yang family has guarded the borderlands for generations, and every member has died in battle, at the soup kitchens outside the city and the foundling home for baby girls in the northern district. You'll never fail to see someone from my Yang family. The common people aren't brainless non-humans from some storybook who believe every rumor and follow wherever she points. They will never forget the soldiers who sacrificed themselves for them, and they would never mistreat their surviving families. Plus, since Xu Miamian's words implicated the crown prince, the Court of Judicial Review quickly received a report and sent people to arrest Xu Miamian. Meanwhile, in the palace, while the princess was dining with the emperor and empress, she accidentally let slip that Pei Yanli had previously indulged Xu Miamian by letting her wear a wedding dress in the princess's ceremonial style. Originally, Pei Yanli had volunteered to complete the final work on the wedding dress, something that should have been done by the bride to be because I wasn't skilled at needlework. The emperor and empress were pleased by this and had wanted to promote him further. Now, crime was added upon crime, fury upon fury. The emperor and empress issued an edict stripping Pei Yanli of all his positions and sentencing him to 50 strikes of the rod. Just as they were about to exile the entire Pei family, they were stopped by the crown prince, who rushed over in haste. The crown prince said it was all old Madame Pei's idea. A country-old lady doesn't understand any laws, afraid that having her niece become a concubine would leave her with no face to meet her deceased elder sister. That is why she came up with the idea of marrying her as an equal wife. Pei Yanli had no knowledge of this. As for the wedding dress, that must also be Xu Miamian's fault. Making decisions on her own, Pei Yanli was just bound by sibling affection. Having known this all along, I'm not disappointed. But even with the crown prince vouching for him like this, Pei Yanli could only stay in the Eastern Palace, participating in the compilation of Book of the Later Han with the status of a mere secretary. From the Minister of War praised by everyone, to an obscure secretary in the Eastern Palace, the fall couldn't be any greater. Xu Miamian was sentenced to exile for the crime of overstepping her bounds. Old Madame Pei was also sentenced to 30 strokes of the cane and stripped of her noble title. My engagement with Pei Yanli naturally became void. Speaking of which, when Pei Yanli's father passed away, Pei Yanli was only 4 years old. The clan bullied them as an orphan and widow, seized their family's land, only leaving them a broken thatched hut that was about to collapse. Fortunately, Pei Yanli proved himself worthy, first passing the children's examination, then the provincial examination. He made his way through to the palace examination, and finally achieved the top scholar position. After getting engaged to me, he also became half a son-in-law to the imperial family, with a bright future ahead. From the Hanlin Academy, he was promoted all the way to become the youngest vice minister of war. Only then did life for the PI mother and son truly get better. What a pity this mother and son, accustomed to hard days, couldn't handle even a bit of sweetness. Xu Miamian died on the road to exile. I wasn't surprised by this. She basically took the fall for the entire Pei family, and no one dared to take money to look after her. The crown prince was willing to protect Pei Yanli, but he couldn't be bothered to waste effort on a useless person. If he wasn't careful, it might even displease the emperor and empress. The road to exile was so harsh, it was nearly impossible for a weak woman to survive it. Ridiculously, when news of this reached the capital, Pei Yanli didn't blame his own stupidity. Nor did he fault the crown prince, who used him as a pawn. Instead, he came to resent me. He put on a show of rescuing a damsel in distress, redeeming a young woman who had nearly been sold into an illegal brothel by her father and brothers. This did restore his reputation somewhat. That woman's appearance was quite nice, with something familiar about her features. I heard that after entering the household, she was adopted by old Madame Pei as a foster daughter, renamed Ruan Ruin, and kept by her side. Upon hearing this, I informed the princess. The empress had long since abolished all brothels and further prohibited the secret establishment of illegal brothels among the common people. Anyone whose father or brothers dared to sell their daughter or sisters into an illegal brothel, anyone who operated or frequented illegal brothels, would receive 20 lashes and 5 years in prison without exception. Any official found frequenting illegal brothels would be dismissed from office, investigated, and never employed again without exception. Who would have thought that after just a few years of peace, someone would dare to defy the ban again? The princess used the pretext of hosting a banquet to summon Pei Ruanruan for questioning. Pei Ruanruan was the daughter that Pei Yanli's mother had just adopted. One Ruanruan, one Miamian. This mother and son truly didn't regard them as people worthy of their cherishment. Pei Ruanruan wore a goose yellow Ruquan dress, looking somewhat constrained, but she answered the princess's questions one by one. The princess and I only then learned that among the women in these secret brothels in the capital, aside from those sold by their fathers and brothers, quite a few were actually abducted and trafficked from outside. Some were even under 10 years old, merely to satisfy certain men's perverted fetishes. And among the visiting guests, there was no lack of powerful officials from the court. The coldness in the princess's eyes deepened further, and she immediately ordered someone to prepare the carriage, preparing to enter the palace to see the emperor and empress. When leaving the princess's residence, Pei Ruanruan called out to me. She performed a very proper courtesy, "Greetings, county princess." After excusing her from the courtesy, I continued walking toward the carriage. Pei Ruanruan followed behind me, hesitantly speaking. "County princess, brother has been doing very poorly lately." I looked at her quizzically. She continued, "I heard that once noblewomen in the capital have their engagements broken, they'll be strangled to death with a white silk ribbon by their families under the pretext of having lost their chastity. Then it is lied about publicly as death from illness." I stopped in my tracks. Pei Ruanruan's tone was earnest. "County princess, brother is very worried about you. Who told you this?" I turned to look into her eyes. "Who told you that women whose engagements are broken must die to preserve their chastity?" I had never known that such an abhorrent custom existed in the capital. Those who act in bad faith feel no shame, but instead the victims are persecuted all over again. Pei Ruanruan seemed frightened. I heard it from the servants at home, gossiping in private. "County princess, we women ultimately need a man to depend on. Although you're a county princess, you still have to marry eventually. My brother is your fiancé. He'll be your lord and master in the future. You, outrageous." The female official from the princess's side happened to come out to deliver a new crossbow that the princess had specially ordered made for me. Upon hearing this, she sternly rebuked Pei Ruanru. "The county princess holds a noble status equivalent to a Xiangting marquis. Pei Yanli is currently nothing more than a 9th-rank secretary. How dare he presumptuously call himself lord and master before the county princess?" The female official walked over and crisply delivered 10 slaps across Pei Ruanruan's face. "Remember this? The county princess is your lord and master. A whole family of duplicitous, two-faced scoundrels. Stop fantasizing that the county princess would marry down to you." Old Madame Pei saw Pei Ruanruan's swollen face. Perhaps she truly felt distressed, or perhaps she was just making a scene. She charged to the front of the county princess's residence, attempting to force her way in to teach me a lesson. But the guards at the gate wouldn't give her that opportunity. In the end, she herself was pushed to the ground by the guards and sprained her ankle. I heard from the princess that Crown Prince also reprimanded Pei Yanli for this, for failing to keep his household in order. The emperor and empress were already dissatisfied with him, yet he still indulged his mother in coming to provoke trouble. I don't know what Pei Yanli was thinking. Every now and then when I went out, I'd run into Pei Yanli strolling hand in hand with Pei Ruanruan. I just acted like I didn't see them, completely ignored them. The princess even went so far as to host a flower viewing banquet for me. Naturally, these flowers weren't actual flowers. The young men were each stunningly beautiful, with slender, graceful figures, but I found it boring. Compared to fleeting pleasures in the bedroom, I prefer a resonance of souls. The princess glanced at me. "So pretentious. Isn't it just that you despise them for lacking literary talent and charm? For not saying things you like to hear?" She picked up a scroll painting from her side and tossed it into my lap. When I opened it, it was a portrait. The man in the painting had refined features and brows touched by snow. Only a red mole beneath his eye added a touch of allure. The princess snorted coldly. The last disciple of the four houris of Mount Shang, a recluse who never emerges. If you have the ability to bring him under your command, you can pick any treasure from my mansion's storehouse as you please. How interesting. I smiled. I tapped on the red mole beneath the painted man's eye. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. Just when I was out having too much fun to think of home, I received a carrier pigeon message from the princess telling me to return to the capital immediately. For some unknown reason, the emperor and empress had suddenly fallen into a cold war. The left chancellor, who had long disapproved of the empress's involvement in politics, seized the opportunity to advise the emperor to depose the empress. He had already drafted the imperial edict, just waiting for the emperor to seal it. But the empress caught him red-handed on the spot. What was originally just a cold war between the emperor and empress suddenly turned into a hot war. The left chancellor was the first to suffer. Not only was he killed, but all the males in his clan were exiled and the females were consigned to the Yongsan as slaves. His protringas also mostly suffered demotion and dismissal. Now that the position of left chancellor is vacant, the crown prince is getting restless. It just so happens to coincide with the empress's 50th birthday. The emperor and empress, they quarrel as they quarrel, they fight as they fight. The empress's grand birthday banquet was still held magnificently. In the past 6 months, with the crown prince's deliberate support, Pei Yanli has once again risen to the rank of 5th grade vice director, although it is not as good as his previous position as vice minister of war. As long as the crown prince doesn't fall, his future is naturally bright. He is naturally qualified to attend the palace banquet. I ran into the 3 members of the Pei family at the palace gate. Pei Yanli and Pei Ruanren supported old Madame Pei on the left and right, glaring at me with shared hatred. When Pei Ruanren saw me, she flinched. Her cheeks still showed bruises that even rouge and powder couldn't cover. Old Madame Pei quickly pulled her into her embrace to comfort her. When she looked at me, her eyes were full of dissatisfaction and resentment. Pei Yanli's expression was icy cold. His lips pressed tightly together. I couldn't help but laugh. Really like grasshoppers after autumn. Go ahead and keep jumping around while you can. When entering the hall, the emperor and empress had not yet arrived. Crown Prince stood together with Pei Yanli and suddenly said to me, "Ning'an, you and Yanli should pick an auspicious day and get married soon." I raised my eyebrows. Your Highness seems to have forgotten that the 2 sages already made the decision to let him and me break off the engagement. Crown Prince smiled gently. Everything before was a misunderstanding. Speaking of which, you were too willful. If you could learn to be gentle and respectful, Yanli wouldn't have been seduced by Shu Mai Mai. His gaze bore down on me with pressure. Ning'an. The lifelong reputations of the loyal and martial general and the Marquis of Wuning cannot be upheld by a weak woman. Like you, the loyal and martial general was my father, and the Marquis of Wuning was my mother. My mother was also a brave and skilled general. The first woman in our dynasty to be infamed as a marquis and appointed as a general. I stroked my belly and smiled faintly. Then, for the sake of my Yang family's lineage, would the vice director be willing to marry into my family, so that our child can take my surname Yang in the future? Before Crown Prince could respond, old Madame Pei jumped up. She suddenly raised her hand and pointed at me, her long fingernails nearly poking me. "You insolent thing. You, a jinx who brought death to your father and mother. Dare to ask my son to marry into your family. Are you even worthy? My son achieved top honors in all 3 imperial examinations. He could even marry a princess. What do you think you are?" Before she finished speaking, old Madame Pei was kicked to the ground by someone. The emperor and empress walked hand in hand into the hall. The emperor smiled kindly. "Madam, perhaps I'm getting a bit old and didn't quite catch what you just said. Who did you say is a bastard? Who is the lone star of calamity, and who wants to marry my princess?" I saw the handsome young man standing slightly behind the emperor and empress. I couldn't help but curve my lips into a smile. The crown prince, seeing the emperor and empress so harmonious, and then seeing the young man behind them wearing the matching jade pendant at his waist. His face turned pale instantly. Pei Yanli knelt on the ground. "My mother is but a village woman, illiterate, and spoke out of turn. It was not intentional. I beg your majesty's forgiveness." Pei Ruanruen also chimed in from the side, saying softly, "It was the county princess who humiliated brother first, forcing brother to marry into her family. That is why mother," the empress smiled and looked at the crown prince. Crown prince, didn't Ning'an already break off the engagement with the Pei family? Cold sweat broke out on the crown prince's forehead. The great hall was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. It looked like the crown prince was about to kneel any moment. I spoke up at just the right time, pretending to dry heave twice. The princess played along perfectly. She exclaimed in exaggerated surprise, "What is wrong with Ning'an?" I smiled slightly, perhaps. "I'm with child. Amazing, Xiaoyu. I absolutely can't sit still anymore. At the Empress's Thousand Autumn Banquet, the Crown Prince's forced marriage scene. Ling Yue dropped the line, perhaps, she is expecting." The whole venue was shocked. Pei Yanli raised his head. The Emperor and Empress were delighted. Pei Ruanruen cried out in alarm, killing 4 birds with 1 stone. The precision of this move can be called the ultimate terminator of Palace Pua. What is even better? The child's father is the newly appointed Left Chancellor Xianli, the last disciple of the 4 graybeards of Shangshan, personally selected by the Emperor and Empress, who leaves from the county princess's residence daily to attend morning court Pei Yanli. Why don't you continue saying, "I'm your fiancé"? Say it, say it. This palace feels so satisfied today. I'm downing this bowl of melon. The man who had been kneeling on the ground in fear suddenly raised his head. The Emperor and Empress looked extremely delighted. But Pei Ruanruen cried out in alarm at this moment. The county princess hasn't married yet. How could she be pregnant? Even if the county princess wants to force brother to marry into her family, she can't joke about her own reputation. A calculating look suddenly flashed through Pei Yanli's eyes. I smiled slightly. "Who told you I'm joking? The 2 sages are present here. I wouldn't dare deceive the sovereign." Pei Yanli's expression darkened, his eyes furious. He had once wanted to offer himself to my bed, but I refused. Fortunately, the Empress's words made me maintain some vigilance toward him all along. The Emperor laughed heartily. "The Empress's Thousand Autumn Ning'an is expecting, and Master Shi is willing to come out of retirement to serve as Chancellor. 3 joyous occasions at once. Today I shall drink until drunk with all my ministers." Throughout the great hall, from the high officials down to the palace servants, everyone was busy congratulating the Empress on her birthday, congratulating my Yang family for having an heir, and toasting the newly appointed Left Prime Minister Shi Yan. No one paid attention to Pei Yanli's family. Pei Ruanruen's expression was blank and uncomprehending. Indeed, with her limited understanding, she could never figure it out. Why someone unchaste, who bore a child before marriage, could receive the favor of the Emperor and Empress and congratulations from all officials. The princess glanced at me. How can a spiritual resonance produce a child? Divine communion? I stuffed a piece of osmanthus cake into her mouth. Rarely blushing, "Shut up," old Madame Pei was taken away by the Palace Justice Department. Pei Yanli stubbornly knelt before the county lord's residence. I didn't want to pay attention, but the man, cold as frost and snow, pressed me against the mirror, his eyes lowered, afraid you'll soften when you see him. Unable to bear it, I bit my lip. The child. Wei's cool hand pressed against my lower abdomen, gently pressing the protruding part. Already 3 months, it is fine. A breeze blew past, brushing away the heat from my cheeks. To appease Xian's unreasonable jealousy, I reluctantly met with Pei Yanli, but he showed a look of pleasant surprise, trying to defend himself. "I've never betrayed you." This was the first time Pei Yanli had such a humble attitude in front of me. I only pitied Shu Mamian for being alone and helpless, and only used Pei Ruanruen to compete with the county princess. But I never truly crossed that line. Even though my mother intended for me to take concubines, I never agreed. I touched my belly, my smile calm. "But you never refused either, did you?" "Pei Yanli, it is not that you didn't want to. You just didn't dare gamble," I sighed. "Pei Yanli, I'm very disappointed in you. I never expected you to be a gentleman, but I never imagined you'd be far more despicable than I thought." Pei Yanli's eyes turned red, but Pei Ruanruen was even more furious than Pei Yanli. "County princess. What right do you have to criticize my brother? You're the one who got pregnant before marriage, not knowing." Slap. Cheng Ying delivered a clean, swift slap across her face. How dare you act so impudently before the county princess? Both Cheng Ying and I were martial artists. The force of that slap was by no means light. Seeing me look at her, Cheng Ying grinned cheerfully. Lady Song said, "I'm usually too good-tempered, which is why these people dare to make such a racket in front of the county princess. Give them a beating, let them learn their lesson, then they'll learn to behave themselves." I couldn't help but laugh, truly the same temperament as the princess. The crown prince could barely take care of himself, and this time was powerless to protect Pei Yanli any longer. He was stripped of his scholarly honors and dismissed from his official position. Once upon a time, his mother served him bowl after bowl of duhua, supporting him to become the top scholar. But now it was all just an empty dream. One day, leaving the residence, Pei Yanli was actually waiting across the street from the county princess's mansion. Seeing me come out, he practically ran to the carriage. His eyes were red, as if he had been crying or as if he'd been tormented, wearing a brocade robe, but it looked somewhat old. The guard, not knowing his intentions, kicked him at the back of his knee. With a thud, Pei Yanli fell to his knees on the ground. He looked up at me. "Lingyue, let's start over." "Okay," his voice was bitter. "I'm willing to take on the Yang family legacy together with you." I raised an eyebrow. "You've changed your mind and want to marry into my Yang family now." Pei Yanli nodded. "Yes, I figured it out for Lingyue's sake. What does pride matter?" I asked him curiously, "But I'm already pregnant. What about that?" Pei Yanli clenched his fists. "Then I'll treat the child as my own. Will your mother agree to this?" "I can persuade her." I couldn't help but laugh softly. Then, "Pei Yanli, in the past when you were still the top scholar, when you were vice minister of war, why couldn't you persuade your mother then?" I restrained my smile and looked at him calmly. "Pei Yanli, even now, you still don't dare to admit that it is you who has been indulging your mother and your sister all along, allowing them to humiliate me and force me to back down, do you?" I recalled how the empress once said I was too foolish. I didn't understand back then, but now I've come to realize it somewhat. Pei Yanli has never been an honest scoundrel. He is so vile, despicable. Pei Yanli hung his head. Lingyue, I just wanted so badly to prove that you cared about me. You're always so calm, making me feel like you only chose me for the sake of marriage." "Really? That is all?" I looked at him now filled with regret, my heart completely unmoved. At the end of the day, it is only because he has lost everything. Now that he feels regret, if the emperor and empress didn't truly love me, if I wasn't useful to them, if it were me who had lost everything today, left in disgrace. Pei Yanli would never feel the slightest bit of remorse. In our dynasty, since Emperor Taizong's princess, Cheng Yi openly kept male concubines and refused to be buried with her husband, choosing instead to share a tomb with her male concubine. It has been no secret that imperial daughters take male favorites. Though I'm not of imperial blood, the emperor and empress treat me as their own daughter, with the Yang family now reduced to only me. Naturally, no one dares to criticize my being pregnant before marriage. Moreover, there are always those with keen eyes and clear minds who can see who the father of the child in my belly is, who told the newly appointed Left Chancellor to come straight to my county princess's residence to sleep every day after leaving office, and then head to morning court for my residence the next day. The crown prince tried several times to win over Xian, but was rejected each time, and suddenly he became obedient. But soon, a major incident occurred in the capital. The Chief Justice of the Court of Judicial Review received an anonymous letter of accusation. With the Emperor and Empress's permission, he searched the stables of the Eastern Palace and found hundreds of sets of armor. And in the Crown Prince's study, there was a blood oath between him and the vice commander of the Right Garrison Guard plotting rebellion. That oath was written by Pei Yanli, who was still a scribe at the Eastern Palace at the time. The handwriting was identical to his palace examination paper. Faced with such ironclad evidence, the emperor was heartbroken. Yet, under the empress's persuasion, he still issued an edict to strip the crown prince of his title and reduce him to a commoner, exile him to Bajou, and imprison him in separate quarters for life. His own son could keep his life and be given a dignified way to die, but the others weren't so fortunate. Pei Yanli was torn apart by chariots, and Pei Yanli's mother and Pei Ruanren were sentenced to exile in Xianzhou as slaves, never to be pardoned for life. At that time, I was already 6 months pregnant. Xian embraced me from behind, his hand gently caressing my belly. "Are you pleased now?" I satisfactorily kissed the corner of his lips. "Naturally, I'm extremely satisfied." Then when will you give me a proper status? The corner of my lips curved up. At least we'll have to wait until the child's aunt becomes the crown prince. Decorated hairpin and pheasant robe. The decorated hairpin and pheasant robe was a ceremonial dress system worn by noble ladies, empresses, and princesses on the most solemn occasions in ancient China, belonging to one of the 6 robes. Pheasant refers to the pheasant bird, and the pheasant robe was embroidered with rows of pheasant bird patterns, symbolizing nobility and auspiciousness. The decorated hairpin was a headdress worn together with the pheasant robe, adorned with gold. Jade and floral ornaments, featuring intricate craftsmanship. According to ritual regulations, the pheasant robe had strict hierarchical distinctions. The pheasant robes worn by the empress, princesses, and noble ladies of various ranks had clear differences in color patterns and the number of decorated hairpins. Unauthorized presumptuous wearing of a pheasant robe above one's own rank was considered a crime of overstepping boundaries, and in serious cases could be punished with severe penalties.